Dungeon Crawler Network presents Tales of Tamriel.
Doing good. It's my last day to enjoy these live, so since next Sunday I'll have to go to work after. But I have today off, so
yeah. So
I could have made a wet Khajiit joke there, but I held myself back.
Well done.
Well done. Well, I also want to welcome our chat room to the show. Dear Heaven above. And also Asteldian. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Excellent. I noticed that I had my mic muted for that first little bit. So podcast listeners, you may not hear me until just recently. You could hear you guys, but not me because I muted my mic. So it wasn't picking that up. So everyone missed my nice introduction. Oh well. That sucks. All right. Well, before we get rolling, I said last week we were going to have an announcement, and I forgot. I completely forgot. Just it out the door. I don't know what happened, and it's no longer there. But that announcement that I wanted to make was actually after episode 100. We are getting a new host on the show to replace Asteldian, as a lot of you know, because Asteldian is going to be taking a step back from ESO in general and be doing some other things on the network. Well, now I can tell you who that host actually is because they told me that they are indeed interested in doing the show and will be joining us after episode 100. And that person is Nate Langston. So he's been on the episode before. He was part of ESORP. If you've ever listened to that podcast, so I'm sure you probably have. If you're listening to us, you probably listen to that. So he'll be coming on the show after episode 100. With that being said, episode 100's or episode 101 is going to see a change in time as well, because we are going to a more morning time frame in order to accommodate Nate and being able to allow him on the show. So I believe we have that set at 10 a.m., right, Avi? Which is 10 a.m. my time.
Yeah, so that would make it 7 a.m. my time. Sounds good to me. I'll be more awake. I'm a morning person.
Me too. And I don't know. I think you could probably start drinking at 7 a.m., right?
I could probably
it'll leave your system by lunch.
A few more hours.
Yeah, exactly. It will leave my system, and then I can go to work at 3.
There you go. There you go. You got... My goodness, that's plenty of time.
If that's not the way to think as an adult, I don't know what is.
I don't know either. You know what they say, you can't be drinking all day if you don't start in the morning. So.
Exactly.
But Budweiser is the breakfast beer for a reason.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Goes good with my Trix cereal.
Budweiser and Trix. Oh, that sounds gross.
Right into the same bowl, you know.
Oh, that sounds so gross. My. Well, KDR Mickey's in chat, as well as Clan of Orphan. Patty, welcome, guys. Welcome to the chat room. Thank you so much for showing up. Before we roll into the game news, we got to say thank you to our Patreon supporters. And I'm actually going to start, as I said last week, we're going to start doing a Patreon spotlight for the people who are currently supporting us all the time. And this week, I'm going to spotlight one person at a time and just go forward. I want to spotlight Carly Shield. I'm sorry if I butchered your last name. I hope I didn't. She's fantastic. She has been supporting us all the way back since March of 2015. So she's actually one of our longest supporters. Not our longest one. I'll probably do them next week. I just noticed she's been on here. She's the first one I picked randomly. But yeah, she's been supporting us since March of 2015. So thank you so much, Carly, for all you do for us. We really do appreciate it. You are the best, as well as all of our Patreon supporters. But this episode is brought to you by people like Carly, who support us on Patreon. So if you're currently not supporting us and you would like to try to help out, there's some neat rewards as well over on patreon.com/dungeoncrawlnetwork. Go ahead and check that out. See if any of that interests you. And if it does, happy day. Of course, you can also support us by subscribing to us on our YouTube channel, leaving us an iTunes review, a Stitcher review, anything like that, and telling your friends about us. All that helps get the word out. Avi, that beer looks fantastic. I see it in the camera. It's just golden and gorgeous.
Yeah. I got like 4 next to me, so.
Okay, you're prepared.
I'm prepared.
You're
Let's have
prepared.
a good show.
I like it. I like it a lot. All right, guys, we're going to roll right into the game news. First off this week, if you missed it, there was a neat little Hearts Day live event on the PTS with my personal boy crush, Lawrence Schick. Yeah, I said it. It was Hearts Day. I don't care. Lore Master Lawrence Schick did a Hearts Day event on the PTS. I guess it was the day after actual Valentine's Day. Yeah, it was an interesting little event. It was a role play event, if you will. But he came on. He read a short marriage vows in style of Mara, and a bunch of people got married on the PTS. So that was kind of neat. So if you missed it, that's a shame. I hope they kind of put the whole event up on their YouTube at some point. But I think there's a what do they call it on Twitch? A highlight on Twitch showing the reading.
There's a small highlight of just his the wedding, how would you call it, the wedding vows ceremony? I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Lawrence Schick talking, it's amazing. It's always amazing when he talks, so.
I like how
About
chat
2
room...
minutes long.
2 minutes long? All right. I like how chat room right now is pretty much talking to Avi about Irish coffee. Like, that is what it has become. So that's kind of neat.
Yeah.
Avi,
Becoming
look
my
what
thing.
you started. Well, there we go. All right, so that was just a quick little news note, but I think it was neat nonetheless. They also released a new ESO soundtrack. Music of Tamriel Volume 1 came out, which includes all the music from Imperial City and Hrothgar DLC packs. It's $10 on iTunes, got 14 tracks to it, and I went and picked it up immediately because I love the music. Did you guys get it yet?
I have not.
You should.
No, I didn't get the music.
You don't get the music, Asteldian? Do you not like that?
As a crime that might seem, I pretty much never play any game with any of the game music on.
Oh.
Oh.
So I couldn't even tell you what the music would be.
That deserves a moment of silence.
I know.
I'm speechless.
That was me. I don't even know what. I guess the show's over, guys. See you later. I'm too disheartened to continue. Clan of Orphan. What is this podcast about? Apparently, it's about drinking. So not ESO. Not ESO. All right, so that is out there on iTunes if you're at all interested. I adore the game music. I mean, it's not Jeremy Soule. I mean, the only thing Jeremy Soule did, I think, was the main theme. But I think it's Brad Derrick, I think is the name of the person who did it, the composer, and he did a pretty good job with all the music. I've listened to it. I've enjoyed it. And I mean, I always play with the game sounds and music on. I guess I shouldn't say that for every MMO, but this one in particular I do, because music always, I don't know, I feel like it adds to the atmosphere in this game. So it's nice to be able to add the extra sounds to my playlist. Much to the chagrin of my wife, who is not a big a fan, and when we're listening to music on my phone, like we'll put it in the car or whatever, and she'll be listening to music, and all of a sudden, she's like, I can't believe it. You have like 500 Elder Scrolls songs on here. So she's like trying to skip, and it's just skipping to more Elder Scrolls music. Because it all intertwines. She puts it on, she puts, Taylor Swift, whatever. I don't know.
Taylor Swift over Elder Scrolls music?
I know, she's crazy. She's crazy. But, she'll be trying to listen, all of a sudden, an Elder Scrolls song, so she'll hit skip, and then it goes to another one just because there's so much Elder Scrolls music on my phone. I kid you not. I have the entire Skyrim, Morrowind, Oblivion, ESO, and now the music of Tamriel on there. So it's like 200 tracks worth of ESO music, or Elder Scrolls music.
Yeah, I have the Skyrim one in my car, but besides that, I think the rest of them are like the Lord of the Rings soundtrack and a couple other like that. But Elder Scrolls is only Skyrim right now.
Right.
I love it.
Nice. All right, so we're going to get into some real news here, such as the ESO PTS patch notes for 2.3.2 hit. Another incremental patch hit the PTS this week that addressed issues in the Thieves Guild, including art, itemization, quests, etc., etc. They also continue to fix issues or make improvements on the base game patch surrounding combat, gameplay, itemization, and the UI. In this patch, they copied all of the characters from the European Mega server over, as well as added a new Cyrodiil campaign rules in Azura's Star, which suppresses all of the champion point passives. So let's actually chat about that one. Suppressing all the champion point passives for this new Cyrodiil thing, how popular do you think this is actually going to end up being?
It's a good question. I mean, I'm sure some people will like it. Most won't. But I think it's interesting to try out.
So what they're suppressing all the passives that anyone has. So
champion points won't work.
Yeah. And that's all of Cyrodiil or just a certain server?
Only on the one campaign right now.
Oh, I think it'll be well popular. People have been wondering why the hell they've done that for a long time, especially the non-vet one. Is it the non-vet one or the vet one they're doing it on?
This is the non-vet one doesn't have any champion points right now. Regardless of if you have them or not. Actually,
they finally got rid of that. I haven't been paying attention.
Yeah, now what they're supposedly doing is now adding a veteran rank version of the non-vet, so no champion points are available.
I think some of the more hardcore PvPers will like it. Us casuals would hate it.
Really? I actually think that's the other way around.
Well, hardcore PvPers all want fair fights. Well, actually, that's what they say they want.
I think they like crushing.
Yeah, they do like crushing, but they like to crush knowing it's because they're better. Usually, admittedly, a crush is a crush most of the time, but proper PvPers like to know they're winning on equal ground and they're just better players. The more casual people, if you're someone who's got a lot of champ points because you do a lot of PvE or whatever, you like every edge you can possibly get. So if that can help give you a chance against a real PvPer, I'd rather have the champ points. But certainly as a new player or a fresh veteran, you'd definitely be wanting to go on that server for a while. So I think it's got a place, because otherwise it'll just come off the non-vet campaign and then screwed. You go from, I'm out of here, and then straight into people who've got 500 or 300 points or whatever. Whereas now there's somewhere you can safely go. There's a nice intermediate. So it might make no difference. All the end gamers will be on the normal servers, but there's somewhere to go when you're a fresh veteran player.
In my eyes, I actually think it's going to be very popular among casuals. And Justin, I'm actually going to hold on to that one comment you made about 64-bit because I want to hit on that. But my reasoning behind this, and this comes from a person who right now, Avi probably still has me beat on champion points. I have like 256 champion points or whatever, so I'm below the cap yet. People who are at cap probably don't care about the champion point because they're capped out, right? If you're below the cap, you are at a power disadvantage in the normal Cyrodiil, because if you're not at cap, I still have 100 and no, not quite 100. Well, it's close to 100 points still available to me. That's a good increase across the board, right? So if anyone else is the full 500 champion points or whatever, 501, whatever the max is right now, and I'm at they're not twice as power. They have twice as much champion points. It's probably equated to maybe a 10% increase because of diminishing returns. But people who are capped out at the 501 champion point level probably will not find this as fun as other people, but casuals are people who are not at cap would actually like this because it would level the playing ground. Because if someone walks in with no champion points or just a small amount, you're obviously a good portion weaker than a character who is at the 501 cap. So this no champion point, I think, is going to cater closer to casuals than the hardcore PvPers.
You're talking about casual players, though. I'm talking about casual PvPers, who more often than not, I know you're an exception, but a lot of casual PvPers spend a lot of time in PvE, and they could well have the max champ points. So that's where they've gone from. In fact, hardcore PvPers are more likely not to have the max champ points because experience in PvP is pretty crap. So it's kind of a weird. But you're right. If you're at the cap, you'd rather be on the champ point campaign. If you're out of the cap, why wouldn't you go for the non-champ point one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it could really go either way. Like Asteldian said, I think it's nice for the people who are coming from the non-vet and jumping into the veteran one for the first time and not getting smashed by those people who do have over 500 champion points, because it's just always kind of, how would you say, it kills PvP for you in some ways when you just have no advantage. You can't do anything about it. So I like it. I think it's a good idea. I especially think it's a good idea for non-vet. So I'm happy they're doing that, because I always thought it was really weird having champion points in the non-vet campaign. It just broke it to me.
Right. Next up, they made several changes in the Maul of Lorcage and Thieves Guild quest in order to gather more additional feedback and bug reports before going live. In these cases, they've slightly decreased the difficulty on the bosses in the trial so more players could actually reach the last boss to give feedback. And they also increased the amount of Thieves Guild reputation gained by completing the main story quests. So, Maul of Lorcage apparently is fairly difficult. Like,
right.
Exceptionally difficult, to the point where in order for them to test successfully, they're having to reduce the difficulty just so people can complete it. And I mean,
just to put it out there, they did say this wasn't going to go live. This is just on PTS further testing so they can get feedback.
Right.
So I think some people kind of got the idea that it was going to be nerfed when it went live, and it's like, no, it's just for PTS. So just want to get that out there.
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Asteldian, I know you're a big proponent of group gameplay. What are your thoughts on having to nerf, at least in the PTS, so people can get through it, one of the trials?
I think that's a very good sign, because although admittedly they've probably got the raiders they have left probably isn't quite as hard a core group as it once would have been, so that might have something to do with why they've got to ease it rather than necessarily being much harder than previous raids were. Although I think some of the main hardcores are still around, so maybe not. But no, it's definitely a good sign. I'm a group player, although actually raids isn't really my thing. I sort of do them reluctantly at the end of once I run out of group play to do. I go for the larger team play.
Okay. See, I've been watching a couple streams specifically of Outcast. I would give a... Sorry if Outcast, if you watch the stream, I have no idea if you do or listen to the podcast, but I love your work, and I'm sorry I cannot remember your Twitch. But you should look him up. I know it's like drug control something. I don't really remember. I'm sorry. But he was running with his guild, Hodor, which is pretty much the main guild in ESO at this point. And it is difficult. I know he has some criticisms about rewards for these trials. And I mean, I think that's pretty well known to everyone that the rewards in this game are lackluster in a lot of regards, especially gear rewards and things like that. Maul of Lorcage, I think, is a little different, but like the older trials with the gear being as poor as it is and not even VR16, it's hard to go back and revitalize those areas. But it looked like it was actually fairly difficult. So I'm excited. let's see here. All right, let's go down. 64-bit client is now available. And one thing that I really wanted to talk about was Justin in chat mentioned how the 64-bit client, at least for him and on his rig, he noticed that the, let me quote this. For all those wondering about performance increase with 64-bit client, I can confirm it is negligible. It's barely there, barely even noticeable. So I guess with the 64-bit, if people are expecting a huge change, don't be too disappointed, or don't be too hopeful. Yeah. I know 64-bit clients are pretty much like what everyone should be working towards. I don't even know why anyone even releases 32-bit clients in this day and age. Because I don't know of an OS that actually still is 32-bit, and none that are still modern, so it is what it is. So, I don't know. I guess, what are your guys' thoughts, 64-bit client?
I wouldn't bother updating to it, but...
I can't. But, no, it doesn't really bother me at all. I mean, I heard it might improve loading screens. That's all I really heard much about it, so...
Well, that might be nice. Those dreaded loading screens.
For that, I might reinstall it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, right. My biggest complaint about loading screens right now is I love the lore. When you go into an area, they try to give you lore of the loading screen of where you're going in, which is wonderful because I love lore. But they don't give you enough time to read it before they switch to, did you know you could dodge by double tapping your key? I'm like, I don't care. Just go back to the lore. So yeah.
It's like, no, I can't. I turned that off.
Yeah, I turned that off. I hotkey it. Regardless, I just want to stick. Zenimax, if you're listening, please give me an option just to choose lore intros for loading screens and that they don't go away, because I would love to read those, and I can't. But, you know, I've been here for almost 2 years now, or a little over 2 years if you count beta. I think I know all your tooltips. I would much rather read the lore. The Cadwell Silver and Gold. They added some previously mentioned rewards to the Cadwell Silver and Gold. Completing Cadwell Silver will grant you the Soul Shriven Motif book. That's interesting. Completing Cadwell's Gold will now grant you unique collectible from Sir Cadwell himself. Hint, the helm he wears, the pot.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's the best news I've heard all day.
If you've already completed both of these, you'll automatically receive the rewards. Every player who has completed Cadwell's Silver will receive a Soul Shriven motif in the mail, and anyone who's completed Gold will receive the collectible directly into the collection's UI. So, yay!
It's awesome.
Yeah. They're enabling scrolling combat text. If it hasn't, because it's not really been enabled, so that sucks. And then there's a whole list of other fixes that are mostly just terrain and animation fixes. So if you're interested in checking all these out, it's on the official forums. And go from there. All right. One little final bit of news this week. It wasn't a huge amount of news, but this one's kind of interesting, and I'm going to read this verbatim. This is from the official forums from the K Nowak. He's one of the moderators here. He's the associate gameplay designer over at Zenimax Studios. Hey guys, thanks for the discussion on Bow PvE DPS. We agree that pure Bow PvE builds are parsing a little bit lower than we'd like in dungeon and trial encounters. We want to improve Bow's sustained damage without buffing its burst, especially from crouch, because that would just be fun for PvP. And we targeted a change that will help out Bow builds without influencing the hybrid dual wield /bow or two-handed /bow builds, which is currently what I'm running, which are already very competitive. In the next PTS build, you should see the following change to the Hawkeye passive. The old Hawkeye passive, which increased the damage your bow attacks by 8 or 15%, depending on how many points you put into it, when striking off-balance enemies. It's kind of worthless because I don't think you can make bosses off balance, right?
Right.
Yeah, they're like immune to almost all forms of CC, so I don't think you can actually make them off balance. So that passive is worthless in bosses. But the new Hawkeye, your successful light and heavy attacks increases all your bow abilities by 2 or 5% for 4 seconds. This is, if you have 1 point, it's 2, and if you have 2 points in it, it's 5. So for 4 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. So you get a 15% bonus if you get all 2 points in it to damage. Now you have to attack at least once every 15 seconds, or every 4 seconds, but I mean, who doesn't do that? Yeah. I think this is actually kind of a neat change, because bows always felt lackluster. I mean, other than PvP. I know PvP, it's really, you can do some damage with it. And I know my build, it's not, I don't use it as a main, but I put like poison injection on, and venom arrow is very good for casters, as Justin just said. It's neat that they're doing this, because yeah, everyone right now uses the bow. If you're using a dual wield or a two-handed weapon as your primary, you use the bow for pretty much 2 things. If you're stamina, venom injection or poison injection, volley, switchback. You just keep those buffs, those dots going for DPS. That's all you do. And that seems to be the current meta for stamina users. If you're using the bow for anything, is just keeping those 2 dots active, and that's it. So adding this second part where you actually actively have to be using the bow, it's fascinating, and I think it might be interesting for anyone who actually wanted to be a straight bow user, because I know when the game first came out, a lot of people picked up the bow to play the sneak thief like they did in Skyrim until they realized bow was terrible.
That was me. No, I like this change a lot. Like you said before, the old Hawkeye passive has really no effect on bosses or kind of worthless. Exactly, it's kind of pointless for PvE. So yeah, I think this is a good change.
It's a wonderful change. I'm actually excited, because it might actually make my bow DPS comparable when I have to switch to bow for certain fights. So I like it. I mean, it definitely is a lot more useful, and I like the fact it only affects bow builds, so it's not like you hit it to maintain like a damage buff. It only affects bow abilities. That's neat. So yeah, definitely a good change. So that's coming on the PTS. We'll see how that works. And as they said here, a standard bow PvE DPS rotation should be able to generate and maintain Hawkeye stacks throughout boss encounters. And this keeps it out of reach of the crouch burst or hybrid builds who only use bow to keep up volley and poison or poison injection, which is what I do. So it makes sense, and it should be a good change. I'm kind of interested to see. Chat rooms mentioning a few things about loving bombard and things like that. So I mean, if you like using a bow, I wonder how bow is gonna pop up here in later patches, if it will at all. Is this enough to actually bring it up to a comparable level with dual wield or two-handed for melee DPS, or stamina DPS, I should say? Any thoughts before we close out our news section?
It won't be that good, but it'll be making it competitive at least. So it'll still be inferior to being a magic user for range. But we're not opening up that kind of worms for a general thing. But simply looking at range, a magic user will be better than a bow user, ignoring any other impartial issues between stamina and magic use.
You hurt my feelings there, sir. And the sad part is, I know you're right. That's why you hurt my feelings, because it is true.
Truth hurts.
It does. It really does. Because it's just really, really, really bad right now. Like, I don't know. I don't like Magic at DPS. I don't. It's not the way. I mean, it's not the way I like to play. And I'm not the entitled generation, if you will, going, I need to, I've been playing a Nord Templar stamina since the game came out, even when it was absolutely terrible. So I'm not above playing crappy builds because it's how I like to play. I mean, I've been doing so for a long time. It's just, I don't know. Like, I know the Magicka DKs are coming back in big force with this next patch, even though people are saying they've been nerfed to heck and back, but they're still just so powerful.
Makes me happy I have 2 of them.
For Magicka?
Magic DKs.
Oh, my. KDR Mickey says, worst part was that Snipe was meta for a long time, then they nerfed it. Yeah, they nerfed that pretty hard, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame. All right, well, that's actually it for the news this week, guys. So we're going to move right on into a discussion topic because we haven't had one in a while, but news was light, so I thought of one. And that's going to be housing, because housing is coming to ESO. They finally confirmed that it is coming in 2016, even though we sort of knew that ahead of time. But I'm kind of curious. I want to get a little bit of discussion going, how people think this is they're going to implement it in the game. And chat room, please, if you have any thoughts on housing, how you think they're going to implement it, please go ahead and jump in. Avi, I'm going to start with you real quick first.
All right.
What are your thoughts? Like, how do you think they're gonna do it? Do you think it's gonna be, like, how do you think they're gonna do it? How do you wish they're gonna do it?
All right. Well, I'm gonna start with inside the house, because outside I think it's gonna be instanced. Kind of like, I don't know if it's gonna be like the neighborhood idea, or if it's gonna be like you walk into a gate and whatever house style you purchased, depending on the size, you'll get to see it from the outside to the inside. I don't know. I've never played an MMO with housing, so I'm not too sure exactly how it's going to be. But I think it's going to be something kind of like the Orsinium Museum in a way. It's going to have a bunch of places for you to display all of your trophies and all of your stuff like that. I'm hoping it's not going to be as simple as that. Like, you can display your weapons, maybe a place where you can display your guild tabards, and maybe like, how would you call it? Like, I want to say flags. There's probably a better word for it, but flags with like the Wings of Fate logo on it with the colors. Simple things like that. I don't think they're going to go as far as making it to where like you could pick your bed to be in the left corner and pick your dresser to be in the right corner. I think it's going to kind of be set in stone like Skyrim. And it's going to be more on the line of like I said, like Skyrim. You can buy the small breeze home for 5,000 gold in Skyrim. Or for 15,000 gold, you can get Proudspire Manor, which is a lot bigger, 2 stories, more additions, more things to do. Have little things like a workbench and an armor bench, which is okay to have because if you want any good armor anyways, you kind of got to go out into the world and get it crafted. And maybe like a cooking station so you can cook some food while you're at home. It's going to have little things like that, but I think it's going to be pretty basic, at least at start. So I think it'd be really cool if they made it to where you could place a bed here and there and you can move things around in your house, maybe upgrade your bed to a nice king-size bed. But I think it's really going to fit more on the line of like, if you buy a Breton-style house, the inside of the house is going to look very Breton, as if you buy a Dunmer-style house, it's going to look very Dunmer. I don't know if it's going to be like you can be in Eastmarch and you can buy a Breton-style house while you're in Eastmarch. Or if it's just going to be like, since you're in Skyrim and you're buying your house in Skyrim, then you're getting a Nord-style house. So
I actually wanted to step on that and talk about that in particular here. But before we begin, I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to get these chat comments in here. Justin's pretty much saying that he hopes there's no land grab. In this type of game, I don't think there would be, because they built the zones in a way like not arcade style land grab, because they didn't build this game with housing in mind. So there's not these flat open areas for housing plots or anything like Ultima Online or anything like that. That I don't think will ever happen. But he says he does like the Final Fantasy XIV version, which we'll talk about here shortly. I'll just remember to actually say that. Clan of Orphan says he really hopes that it's something similar to EQ with instance Build-A-Bear style housing. So, speaking of what you were just saying about the type of houses you get, for a lore-wise, I really, 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 really hope that they they lock it to a specific style of house. Like if they even do neighborhoods, Final Fantasy did this as well. When they did neighborhoods, you couldn't just put any style house. When you bought a house in Limsa or in any of the different areas, it matched the style of the land around. And like I feel like if they do neighborhoods or any kind of housing, like if they do neighborhoods where you can build a house of your own, which seems to be a popular thing, and you buy a plot and you go into a certain area of town that there's 30 plots or whatever, and you can pick a plot and build as you will. I really hope they stick to, for at least lore reasons, stick to keeping it within the culture that is present in the land. Like if you're in Skyrim areas, it should be Nord architecture, whereas Dunmer is Dunmer architecture and vice versa.
I think it's going to be more on the line of just like an instance house or something on the line of, say you're in Eastmarch and you're walking around, or Windhelm per se. You're in Windhelm walking around and there's those couple doors around that you just can't get inside of, and you can see them from the outside. What if those just become houses? You open that door and all of a sudden the inside is instanced to the size that you have it or the size that it is, and it changes from what you have to what somebody else could have. So you can have a bunch of people walk up to this same door and open it and it'll be their house inside. But since it's your house, it will be your house, so it won't look like theirs, obviously, and you can invite people in. I think it's going to be something like that.
That's what I expect it to be. That's EQ2 all the way, that is.
Really? You just go up to whatever style house or...
Yeah, in EQ2 used to be able to, if you bought a cheap old house, it'd be one of the fairly crappy looking houses in the town, but if you bought a nicer one, it'd be one of the bigger buildings. But hundreds of people would be running up to the door and entering it, and they're just going to their own version of the instance, and you can choose to see whose house you want to go into if you've got permissions for it, of course.
Right.
So
I have a feeling that, like you guys say, like as much as I love the instance neighborhoods, I do like neighborhoods, but I also, with how they design the towns, where would they put them? Like, I'm trying to look at towns, like, because they're probably going to be attached to cities just like anywhere else, right? And I'm looking at, right now I'm in Deshawn or whatever, not Stonefalls, and looking at the cities and stuff. Where would they create these houses for the instant? Like, because they take up the entire part of the map. There's only a few towns that actually have areas that aren't currently being occupied, if you will, such as Windhelm. There's part of the map right behind it that's grayed out that they could technically open up into an instance or whatever the case may be. But I think a lot of it, like you said, it's going to be specific houses within individual towns that when you click, it opens up.
Yeah, that's what I think. You go up, just like Skyrim, you go up to the Jarl or the House Carl, whatever they're called. I can't think of them. The Thanes person. Right. And you go up to them and you buy the house, and they go, we have these 5 houses available for these amounts of gold. You buy the most expensive one, it will take you to a different door than the least expensive one, and it will be bigger inside and have more options and more things available for you to do. If you buy the smaller one, then you won't have much at all. But it would be cool if it was instance to where they had a little stable outside and you can see all the mounts that you have purchased and things like that. But I don't think they're going to go that far.
With phasing, they could do it. They've already done it in the older world. Like, you can phase entire sections of a map. So it would be great if you walked into a courtyard and automatically phase. That way the courtyard might have been yours. And KDR Mickey in chat says, Daggerfall City has a large portion of locked buildings.
Yes.
So, yeah, there are several that have these locked buildings and whatnot. It would be interesting to see. I just, as much as I love the neighborhood style, that way, you walk in, and for those who don't know what the neighborhood style from, Final Fantasy was, it was the same carbon copy paste map, okay? So, when you went in, there were 14, 15, 20 plots, whatever, and people would buy them, and based on the size of the plot, which determined how big of a house you could actually put on it, you could buy it and go from there. Now, what they did was whenever one of these plots or one of these instances filled up, they just opened up another one. So when you went to go to the gate, saying, okay, and it would show you all the running instances, and you were able to select which instance you wanted to go to, and then you would see. As soon as you went to the zone wall, it pretty much opened up a dialogue of all the houses that were there. The nice part about that is if they allow outside decorations, it doesn't require that amount of phasing. Because all the way that we think it's probably going to go, if they go like the Skyrim route where you just, there's a house, it's a locked door, and then as soon as you open the door, it's instanced to you. You can't really see what other people have done, if you know what I mean, because you don't.
Only if you get invited to go inside.
Exactly.
So the outside sort of just stays the same. I mean, I remember back in the day, the Shoddy Cast. This is like late beta. They made a video going, there's doors you can't, Elder Scrolls, why isn't doors you can't get inside? And I remember people in the chats and people in their YouTube comments going, yeah, because Alvi can get inside. And so I feel like it's been talked about for a long time. So
there's several places as well that are within the world itself, such as Deshaun. If anyone's in game or can get a chance, and hello Amanda Gray, welcome to chat. Open up the Deshaun map and look to the very, very, very far eastern side next to the town called Silent Mire. There's a boat in the water, and then right across there, you'll see a small thing on the map that looks like a house and a gate. What's neat is that house and a gate, you can't get into at all. You can tell there's a house there, and you can tell there's a gate there, but you can't get into it. There's also one in, if I remember correctly, somewhere in, it's not Sentinel, or somewhere near Sentinel, that has that same structure. That was really, really neat that, I always assumed would be part of housing. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of them. It would be great if there was one in like every zone, but I only know of 2 that I've ever run across, which seems not quite enough, but...
Well, they can do a little bit of both also, so they have those very few places where you can actually decorate the outside as well, and you need to pay a whole lot of gold to get one of those.
And we'll talk about the gold then. I want to hold that as a separate conversation at that, but yeah, like you said, ones in town maybe be the cheaper option, and then have a couple houses that have the courtyards and stuff, and they be the more expensive.
Sort of just how rich are you, You want to get a new place, you can possibly sell the old place for less money, maybe it's just a tiny bit less money than you bought it for originally, so you're not getting everything back, and then save up to buy something nicer while you're in your small home, something along that line.
Justin said something in here that's kind of neat. Like how at the edge of Stone Falls you enter a gate and you're in green shade. I think he means the rift, but that's regardless of the point. Yeah, there's a gate there. Why not add a second gate somewhere and all of a sudden you're in an instance neighborhood? I mean, there is a lot of mountain passes where I guess they could, in theory, build towns. And I mean, they've already done it already. If you look at, what town is it? It's a town in Rift, Nimilton, or however you pronounce it.
Nimilton.
Nimilton. Right? Yeah, that does not exist in the 4th era, because obviously towns and stuff disappear. I mean, if they'd add stuff to like the edges of the map, like these small little instance housing areas, and give them names of towns, how would you feel about that lore-wise?
Explain that one more time for me. Okay.
They pick somewhere on a map, like anywhere on a map. I don't care where. We'll just say, for instance, we're going to look at Stone Falls. Okay. Just because it's a great example, and Justin brought it up. At the top, Fort Verac, where you go through that gate and all of a sudden you're in another area? But you know how on the edge of the map there's these high mountains you can't pass? What if they just added a gate or something along that mountain pass, like added another road? I mean, they did. You could also think of it. They did it in Skyrim as well, where they had roads that you could tell led into Cyrodiil, but you couldn't actually go past it because it didn't exist. Right. But adding a road that goes over into an instance neighborhood and have these neighborhoods on the edges of the map, so when you walk through this gate, similar to like how Craglorn has the multiple gates and how Hrothgar has the gates that lead to the other parts of the town. Have a gate that leads into the mountain somewhere and having a small village or collection of huts or something. I mean, if they gave it a town name or anything like that, you know, I don't know, New Riften, well, just for the sake of argument, in the Rift there's a small little town called New Riften, which is the housing section, which isn't anywhere near Rift, it's in the mountains somewhere.
I think it's a good idea as long as they keep it lore friendly. I mean, they can't technically go around just making up a bunch of fake cities that have no place in lore. That I wouldn't be too happy about that. But
well, I mean, even adding these little towns and hamlets and stuff would technically. And KDR Mickey just made a perfect point. If you go into the Elder Scrolls 1 arena, there were a lot of little towns that are missing in later games. There are 3 or 4 in Skyrim alone that are missing in later games.
Yeah, definitely. Mainly because of size and.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, I think that's a great idea. You know, go to the game arena, find all the old cities, and bring them back to life a little bit. I think that fits with the lore and would be a great way to introduce instance housing.
Right. And I mean, they've already done that in the game already with that town in the Rift. That does not exist in the 4th era. I think they say why it doesn't exist. I can't remember for the life of me why it doesn't exist right now, but it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I've even went to Skyrim in the 4th era and the Elder Scrolls 5 and went around looking like, okay, is there broken down houses over here? So
depending on the architecture of the houses too. I mean, if you look at this based on the other games, this interregnum is anywhere from 800 to 1,000 years difference. And I'm sorry, 800 to 1,000 years is an excessive amount of time for architecture, even stone architecture, to remain. Because, you know, like, even here in the U.S., we're obviously one of the, you know, we're not an old nation by any regard, but buildings that are 200 years old are very, very rare because they just fell down over the ages. Progress happened, and you know, things like that happen over time that they no longer exist. Ancient Europe was a lot of the same way as well. If you look, there are castles and stuff that are older than that amount of time, but if you look, a lot of the runes are not 1,000 years old. Maybe a couple hundred, but not 1,000.
Yeah, I just pulled up the Elder Scrolls 1 arena map. So there are a bunch of little towns, like right over by Riften. They have a place called Greenwall and Sungard. By Windhelm, they have Dragonwood, which is a great Skyrim DLC. I believe that you can add Dragonwood and Oakwood to your game. You should get it.
Actually,
Nemulton City is actually in the Elder Scrolls 1 arena.
Really?
Yes, it is.
Actually, out of curiosity, would you be able to post that in chat? You're a moderator. You should be able to. I would really like people in chat to see this map. And thank you so much, KDR Mickey Mike, for pointing that out. Because I've played Arena, but it's been a very long time, and I never really even thought about it. But it's neat that Nemulton existed in prior games. And for anyone who says that ZOS doesn't pay attention to the lore, little things like that is really, really interesting. I think the biggest thing that, talking about lore, that they changed was Cyrodiil. At this point in time, Cyrodiil is supposed to be a jungle, but I don't know.
Yeah, but that could be debated. That's the whole Tiber Septon thing. When Tiber Septon came in, you know, since he achieved what was it called, Chim something along that line. It fitted more towards them. Something like I'm not the best with that.
Oh, I love that lore.
Yeah, me too. But I'm not the best when it comes to talking too much about it.
No, and it makes sense. So, I really hope that they go the neighborhoods, because I think that would be really neat to be able to go into a neighborhood and be able to see multiple houses based on plots, like what Final Fantasy XIV did. When you went into the neighborhood, you could see there were several small house options, and then the medium houses, and then the large houses, and you could... Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. I'm actually going to look at that right now. Just Skyrim... Oh, yeah. Sungard.
Yeah, I just pulled up Skyrim. Yeah.
Well,
And
that's still awesome.
The Malton's right in between, right down by Whiterun.
Yeah, the Molten Whiterun. Well, yeah,
Molten
I guess
City.
that. Well, it looks like they moved it a little bit, but no, I don't know. It
Yeah,
depends
for
on how you
scale.
do the rift. Yeah. Regardless, that was still there, but yeah, Sunguard, Greenwall, Riften's over there. I see that. But yeah, they could add these other towns in the mountains to, like that you see a gate, just like you see in like any of the other zones, whether it be Fort Vrak or better off would either be Hrothgar or Craglorn, because those areas have gates like the Merchant Gate, which if you follow the Merchant Gate leads you directly into Bangkorai, because you can actually find the Merchant Gate in Bangkorai. And there's also like, what is it? Is it called the Friendship Gate? Yeah, Friendship Gate, which leads you directly into Stormhaven and Firebrand Keep. So what's saying there's not little towns in the mountains that disappeared in the 800 years since the main Elder Scrolls games? Because that's how long it's been. About 800 years since Arena, because Arena through Oblivion all takes place within, I think, a 60-year time period. Mike, correct me if I'm wrong on that one in chat. I believe Arena through Oblivion all take place within like a 60-year time period, and most of which, because it all takes place within the lifespan of Uriel Septim VII. Right. Skyrim was the only one who actually broke from that tradition and extended past 200 and some years.
Well, I seem to remember Daggerfall, the game, had a ridiculous amount, because you could go onto the world map and just go to all these meaningless towns and stuff. They had endless names of towns all over their maps, so you could easily borrow or nick names from that.
I'm kind of curious though with the Daggerfall, didn't they use procedurally generated worlds? I guess they did, but I guess the towns would have been pre-made at that point.
I know they all look the same.
Yeah, they all look the same. I think Arena did that too, though, right?
Well, yeah, I think they did a little. Well, yeah, the open world. If you played any of the older Final Fantasy games or whatever, they had the overworld zones where it wasn't really a whole. You walked in, all of a sudden it's a forest, and after you walk, all of a sudden, oh look, here's a town, and here's the name. It spawns the town when the algorithm hits correctly. I would absolutely adore. I hope they don't go the lazy route of just the towns, or if they do, it would be nice if they did a little bit of a hybrid in my eyes, whereas the locked doors in towns were the cheaper houses and the neighborhoods were the more expensive.
Or it can come in stages. The first release of housing might most likely be just the instance housing, and then maybe they can start working on branching it out more and more into doing the neighborhoods and things like that. Like I said, that would bring in being able to sell your previous owned properties. And
do you guys feel like if they bring in either instanced, we'll do it either way. We'll argue that they did both. Okay, that's what we're going to argue at this very point in time, that they did absolutely both things. Are you guys in favor of people being able to own every instance of the house if they had the money? Like you could go buy every town or whatever the case may be. Like if they, I guess they should say it that way. If they did the instance housing where it's just like Skyrim where, all of a sudden you're Thane of Whiterun, here's a house you can buy. Do you feel that is acceptable to own multiple houses, or do you want to limit it to one house only?
Ooh, what if they're pure instance? You may as well, you're a hero every land you go to. You may as well be able to buy as many as you want. I don't know why you'd want to, but
yep, I agree. I think you should buy as many as you're able to buy. You should be able to buy them. I mean, think of playing Skyrim and purchasing Whiterun, and then all of a sudden you get the Solitude, and they're like, "Oh, well, you already own Breeze Home and the land of Skyrim." It's like, no. I'll buy all of Whiterun if I have enough gold for it. Okay, well, don't test me here. So I think you should be able to buy what you want.
Because you'll be taxed on it. So.
I didn't think about tax on the houses.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there should be a way of maintaining these houses, and we'll talk about that again when we go towards pricing, how we feel like pricing should be. And Justin G just said the same thing. What about taxes? The reason why I say this is for hardware issues alone. Okay, I know it's a buy-to-play game. People can pick it up and whatnot, but I believe owning a house should require some upkeep. Not that you lose items or anything. I kind of wish if you lost your house, like there's an NPC, you can get them all back. They all get mailed to you, however you want to do it. But there should be options of this. I feel like you should only be allowed to own one, and you have to sell and buy another, regardless of if it's a neighborhood or an instance. And the reason I say this is to help with server load. Because think of all the character data that needs to be saved, because all this stuff is character data for your character, right? Everywhere where you place your items, whether or not, when we'll talk about that in a little bit when we talk about a little more about customization of housing, but like every single thing you own in this game, whether it's gear, things in your bank, that's all database information for your character. And the more instances you own, the more data they have to hold for your character, and therefore, especially accounts that go inactive, that's a big amount of data. And I feel like just to help the networking side of things, they shouldn't allow you have to pick one.
It's understandable from that point of view. I think it might be nice if maybe you can own a house in silver, own a house in gold, and own a house in your current. So wherever you are, there's a place for you.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of ordeal, you know? Because I mean, if you're part of Ebonheart Pack, but you're doing Cadwell's Gold and you're in the Aldmeri Dominion, technically you're part of the Aldmeri Dominion. So it's like, oh well, my house is all the way back in Stonefalls. No, because your character is in a whole different sort of life if you want to fit the lore. So maybe at least one house in all the, gold, silver.
Okay,
regular.
one per section or faction. Okay.
Yeah, even one per zone. I mean, maybe it's going too far saying, oh, there's 3 houses available in Windhelm. I own all 3.
I'm going to talk with some chat here. Katie Armick says, I want people to see the outside of my house. I agree, especially if we can get trophies and stuff and statues to be able to customize. And after we talk about pricing and stuff like that, we're gonna talk about customization. To see the outside of my house and group people to be able to see the inside and buy one per zone if you can afford it. Justin follows up saying that if you had upkeep, inactive accounts land would free up, which would, if they went with the Final Fantasy XIV neighborhood style of gameplay, then yeah, you would need to be able to free up land over time, just because over time you're gonna start seeing people leaving the game and coming back, and you need to make those changes. KDR Mickey's reading my mind here. He goes, it would be cool if they had an account base and all your characters could be left there so you can visit them. Why do you think I made all females? I think I talked about this all the way back in earlier episodes, saying how I agree with this. That's why I made all my characters female. So when I go back to my house, I hope when they do housing, they have this kind of thing so that I can visit all my hot females.
That'd be pretty cool. You have one of them's like a bard in your house, so you go there as your main character, and one of your lower level characters, they're playing the lute and giving your house some sound.
Mm-hmm.
One of them's a sword swallower.
Have my Khajiit sword swallower hanging inside my house. Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. You might have to buy that in the cash shop. I'm just saying.
That's gonna be expensive.
Yeah,
3,000 crowns right there.
At least. So, all right. Housing cost. Regardless of housing, let's just say right now that they have small, medium, and large houses. I don't care if it's neighborhood or instanced. It's kind of like how Breeze Home versus the one in Markarth and stuff. They were bigger, etc. What are you guys feeling like the cost is going to be? Do you think it's going to be crowns only? Do you think it's going to be gold?
Oh, I hope.
I'm hoping if it's a DLC that this is something you earn in game and it's not just wallet kind of thing. I don't mind if they add furniture and stuff to the ground store, but they really should make it in game. But let's just assume they're doing in game gold for housing. How much do you think housing is going to cost? And do you think they should have taxes to upkeep? So once you buy it, you have to pay taxes every so often in order to keep your house active. How much do you think these prices are? Avi, why don't you go first?
250,000 for small, 500,000 for medium, $1 million for big. Something along that line.
Okay.
Maybe even more expensive than that. I don't want it cheaper than that though.
Buying a house should be an investment. I mean, it wasn't cheap in Skyrim either. I mean, by endgame it might have been, but they were fairly expensive.
Oh yeah, and Skyrim, let's say if you wanted to get Proudspire Manor, it was 25,000, but then if you wanted to get all the updates, that was another 10,000-15,000 on top of that gold, and that's a lot of gold, especially if you're not using any mods or
if you're not cheating.
Well, like I have mods that make it so if you have a nice sword, people at the store don't try to buy your sword for 10 gold. You get your money's worth. So,
right.
Kind of like this game, if you're selling stuff, if you're selling stuff in a cash shop or whatever, then you get to set up your prices to how much you want to sell it for. If someone buys this motif off you for a good price, then hey, you made a good profit.
Mm-hmm. Asteldian, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that sounds about right. Expensive houses is the way to go. Although, if I remember rightly, EQ2 had it quite clever, where houses were quite expensive, but initially you could rent out a cheap in an inn. So an inn would actually have a door to a small room, so you could actually rent out a room at the inn. So it was pretty cheap to do that. So you could get yourself started on the fun of doing whatever it is you guys like doing with your houses. So you could put in your beds or whatever, and that was a relatively cheap, easy way for everyone to be able to have a bit of joy. But obviously it was very limited with what items you could actually have in there. So it might only be able to hold 20 items. So you could put a bed and maybe a couple of pictures or whatever, but you soon run out of space. But at least it was a starting point, and then from there you then obviously saved your money to buy the big and impressive item houses later on, which would have rooms where you could put lots and lots of different things in. So if we're going for expensive housing, I just think it kind of makes sense to have a sort of cheaper option, just so you can tinker around and experience the joys of ownership of a room, so that once you've done some playing around in there, you can decide whether or not you want to bother spending all your money.
Okay. I know other games have done that as well. Final Fantasy XIV, they didn't have guild halls, but guilds could buy houses and give guild ownership, and they actually added exactly what you're saying, a door in the back of the thing, that it was an instance that people, because the houses in Final Fantasy were very expensive. Now, a lot of that was because of the guild inflation, because the game had been out for 2 or 3 years, and they didn't, when they rebooted it into A Realm Reborn, they didn't wipe character data. So people came in with max level characters when the game relaunched, and millions and millions and millions of gil. So what they did when they priced the houses, they priced it average based on the amount of gold that people would have. And woe to you if you happen to play on a legacy server where there were lots of people, because it was individual based on the server. I'm talking millions and millions of gil, even for the smallest houses. I find that this is something where it makes sense. I don't know. I feel like with taxes and stuff, I see people talking about taxes. I think if you're a count, you need to be able to do something to maintain a house, especially if it's an instance neighborhood, because you don't want people to buy houses, not really do anything with them, and then they disappear, because that's server space. Instances maybe won't be as bad. I don't know what their server infrastructure is like, but if they do the neighborhoods, they probably want to free them up. And it 300K. I'm going to read what Mike says. If it has to be taxed, you should be able to buy a lifetime tax-free in Argo support the server upkeep if you want to pay monthly and pay the gold up front. Monthly gold tax, 300,000 plus 10K for a monthly tax. That does seem a little expensive. I was thinking with monthly, it just needs to be enough to know that you're playing a couple thousand, you know, and allow it that people can. What I liked about Final Fantasy, Dark Age of Camelot did this with their tax. They allowed you to have a banker character that would hold money for taxes, and you were allowed, and he had a gold cap. He was able to hold exactly 2 months, I think it is, because they taxed on the weekly. 2 months worth of income, and that for average people, if you're going to be way longer than 2 months, you had to make other arrangements. But you could load enough gold onto this character to pay your taxes for 2 months, and I kind of like that for upkeep.
What about a crazy idea? Having an ESO monthly account means you don't have taxes. Because the idea of taxes is to kick people off because you're wasting space on the server. Well, if you've got a live subscription, technically you're not permanently inactive, and therefore there's no reason to have to kick you out of the house. And so one of the perks of being an ESO Plus member is that you are tax-free.
Exactly what they're saying in chat right now. You know, it's like if you're an ESO Plus member, how about you don't pay tax on your house? And you're already showing that you're showing it's another good addition to being an ESO Plus member right there.
That is very true. I didn't even think about that. Tax is only for the buy to play to make sure you're still active, that you have to buy the house and then you have to maintain it with a set amount of gold in game in order to maintain your house. If you're an ESO Plus, no taxes. I like that. That's actually a really good idea. I like that a lot. I'm going to say with my house, because I'm actually thinking what they're going to do is they're going to do like what Final Fantasy, because they don't want people to buy the houses all right off the bat. They want people to work towards it. So they're going to look at their market data and find out how much money is in the or in the economy right now, and give an average and try to figure out an average cost. And I was talking to some people on TeamSpeak the other night, talking about how much average cost of money is in this game, and I'm thinking the average ESO player right now has probably upwards of 500,000 gold. I really do, because there's a couple people who have tons and tons, so they're the outliers. And then there's a lot of people who are less than 20.
I think I'm about the average, and I have somewhere near about 600,000 gold.
Yeah, I just hit 500,000.
Well,
yeah, my wife almost has 2 million.
Yeah, I had over 1 million before I bought all of my agility jewelry robust. So I pretty much went to absolute zero because I spent almost 500,000 gold on that, respecs and legendarying all my gear, that I've spent most of my money. So at this point, I would have close to 1.5 million had I not bought that stuff. But yeah, I mean, that seems to be about an average, and I would think that with that kind of information, even the smallest houses would be about 1 million gold, and medium being somewhere in the five, and large houses being about 10 million.
That's how I would like to see it. I like to see it as a goal that you have to reach to get, you know. So it's not something on the line of like, oh, you finish silver content and you have enough money to buy a small house.
Day one, everyone has a house. Yeah.
I'd say that's pretty excessive numbers, though.
I honestly don't think it's that excessive. I really don't. I think you're underestimating the...
It's meaningless. So why would you make someone have to gold sink that much money? So, I mean, your average guy, like, who doesn't do the trader stuff, and like all my money only ever came from just hunting, because I've no interest in playing the market or anything. And I've had probably about 500,000 gold, and I was VR 14 for God knows how long. I played the game for a year and a half. My wife said it got loads of money, and she did a lot of the thievery and stuff. But your average person, 10 million for what? A house you decorate?
Yeah.
Sod there.
Well, I mean, some people would pay that, and it would be a form of let's do this kind of deal. Like, I mean, I would. See, you come from a point of housing is kind of crazy, and Justin's like, oh no, not 10 million. I would be excluded. Well, at this point, I would be excluded. A lot of people would be excluded. but there's something to work towards.
That's the idea of owning
Yeah,
a
but that's a
top-end
real
house.
tedious thing to work for, because that's just farming gold. That's you don't need any challenge there, nothing exciting. It's just, oh, I'm going to go find the best place to make as much money as I can fast.
Well, I mean,
boring. That's boring grind, that is. Whew.
Well, is there really
Sounds like-
any
sounds like
difference
the
than
art
any
race.
other type of gameplay, though? I mean, if you're farming agility jewelry, you're either farming mobs hoping to get, the proper teeth or claws, then go and hope that you get the right thing, or otherwise you farm the 200,000 you need for the rings.
Well, yeah, in theory, the farming part of the grind there would be the challenge of it.
Yeah.
I argue there isn't a challenge there, and hence why I don't play anymore. But that's where these things are supposed to be. There should be a challenge to what you're doing. Otherwise, it's just really monotonous.
Right. It's just a matter of, you got to look at it not from the low players or whatever. You got to look at it from the high players as well, because you don't want the high players to be, especially if they limit the land, like they only do a couple instances until they fill up or whatever. I mean, an average player, even if you look at the whole idea of gold sinks is, and KDR Mickey makes perfect sense. Gold sink, it's a gold sink which they lost after mounts became crown store purchases, and all the Rothgar sets are soul bound, so you can't sell them. Yeah, there's no real gold sink right now in the game to lose the gold from, other than maybe potions and stuff, which really don't spend much. Food, you don't, it's not, there's nothing in here that's really expensive right now, other than maybe tempering alloys. So they need to add gold sinks, or otherwise you get what's called mudflation throughout the game, where everything starts becoming, 5 years down the road, everything becomes super expensive because everyone has tons of money and nothing to spend it on. But when a new patch comes out and there's new gear, what is it that they spend it on? Tempering alloys. If you eventually let it happen, you're going to look at 1 million gold for a single tempering alloy. I know it's excessive, but it happens in games where there's not enough gold sinks that people want to spend their stuff on. The basic commodities become so expensive. I mean, look at tempering alloys at launch. I remember trying to buy a tempering alloy and someone asked 1.5k for it. I'm sitting there going, are you insane? And right now they're up to 7.5. Like, that's just how, as more money goes into the economy, prices on everything else go up. And without gold sinks in the game, things for people to buy, people then hoard the gold, and it never goes anywhere. So housing is a perfect gold sink for the people who just want to decorate their houses or do whatever, to have that sense of ownership in a game. People will spend that. And you look at a cross section of whatever country you're in. The average person has a small house. You don't see people, not everyone has the mansion. And that's how it's designed to be, like you buy within your means. The average player, I think 1 million gold for a small house is not out of the question. Because yes, it's a lot of money, but even in real life, buying a house is an investment. You go to a bank, you borrow money, you do stuff like that, where it's an investment in your future, but you get a small house, you buy within your means. Whereas the super rich people, the people who play the market, the people who do all these things in real life, have the giant houses because they can afford it, right? So 1 million for a small house, because yes, it would take time for an average person, but the average person is probably sitting on almost 1 million for a small house, like a size of a breeze home, would be not without the realm of possibility. And again, as years go on and people get more money, 1 million gold at launch was way more than it is right now. I mean, I would have never believed that rings would be going for 250,000 gold at launch, no matter what they were. Like, no item in the game was going for 250,000 gold at launch. It just didn't happen. But now it does.
How's pricing in other MMOs?
Like I said with Final Fantasy, it was very much based on the amount of gold in the game. Not only that, but in Dark Age of Camelot, when they did the housing, they also did taxes that you had to do to maintain it. The largest houses required 2 or 3 platinum a week, which was like 1,000 gold. That was like 100,000 gold a week in this game. The average player had a hard time. I couldn't afford that. I had a small house because I could only afford the 200 or 300 gold a week fee. I could not afford the big fee. It just did not happen for me. So yeah, and if people want to move towards the bigger houses, they will do so at their own pace. You know, like they can buy a small house and then sell it later, get some money back. You know, have a thing where you can sell your house back for 80% of what you paid for it to an NPC merchant. Okay, and you get that money back, and as you're saving money, you move forward and you move up over times. Clan of Orphan says MMOs are studied to understand real-world economics. EQ2 is part of a 2-year CAS study on inflation and economics. It's true. Like it is kind of crazy when you think about this. And yeah, I do believe housing should be part of the cost of building the house should also be added in there. But in Final Fantasy, for instance, I bought my house on the cheap. I was on the cheapest server blocking, and it still cost me 4 million gold or gil for a small house, and that was just for the land. That didn't even include the buying of the house. So it's not uncommon because these things are meant to be done over a long period of time. Anyone else have anything to say on that? Because I rambled on that for a little bit, and I want to talk about customization yet.
I just still think you're crazy. The price is 1 million just is too much.
Oh, I honestly don't think that. I mean, like I said, I don't honestly think that is. It's not unreasonable. Like if you focused on getting,
it is for those the type of people who like these things the most. And the first one that comes to my mind is my mother. I'm just thinking 1 million gold. Given how long everyone's waiting for this, some people will be waiting yet another year before they can even buy a house.
Well,
unless you can do the in-renting. As I say, if you're going to have the in-renting as a cheap, easy way of giving people a taste,
yeah,
then yeah, you sell the houses whatever you want because at least people have something to have call their own.
Well, that's like you said, that in-renting are the super small house that's only a single room could be that small cost, but there should be something to work for. You know how much play a DLC that was focused on housing would get if you could get the best house day one? It would be a novelty for about a week, and then there would be nothing else to it.
Oh yeah, I got no problem with the 10 million idea of the ridiculous house because those are for those who are really ambitious and want that kind of stuff. But to get yourself in on the door, I just think
there needs to be scale based on the average. They need to look at the average gold and go, okay, average player has, I don't know, 100,000 gold. Okay, so we'll allow you to buy a single room instance in an inn that you can decorate yourself for 50k gold, whatever, a small amount that limits the amount of objects you can have in it, etc. But then if you want your own house that has multiple rooms, has more customization options, then you have to move up to the million. Or do you want the bigger one that has balconies and like an outside courtyard? Well, that's 5 million. Or do you want the mansion that's multiple floors, these big manor houses like we were seeing last night in Oregon? Well, that's 10 million. There needs to be a scale base on this that, there's an entry level. Obviously, there's an entry level anywhere, and then as the more ambitious people go out, there'll be later things. And not only that, but if they allow houses to have permissions like guild permissions do, okay? The guilds could go together and buy the manor house as a guild house, and then people could maybe have that instance room in the guild house. You know what I mean? Like there'd be a door in the back of the manor that is just an instance door that your guild spent the 10 million to get the manor house, and then you're able to buy your own personal room in the back of the manor that you can decorate as you wish by being part of that guild and paying the extra bit of money.
Yeah, no, I can see that.
Yeah, because, maybe 10 million is out of range of an individual person, but maybe not out of range of a guild of 50 people, to go together and get it as a group and then share it. So,
It might also be an Elder Scrolls thing where the modern MMO might be like, why would I spend 10 million gold on a top-notch house when all I need is a simple place to do simple things, where somebody coming from the Elder Scrolls series is kind of like, well, yeah, having having the top-notch house is kind of like almost our style of end game. You know, it's like I want the top house where my guy could retire at and sit down in his chair. That's how I always see housing. You know, like in Skyrim, I want to get the top-notch house, so when I'm finished playing that character, I can sit him down in the chair and go boom.
And let me say this for Justin. He says something, and I'm talking about this. He's like, the biggest piece of land you could buy is 1 million. Then the cost to build the house could be as high as, I don't know, 5 or 10 million, because you could build up one room at a time. Yeah, I'm not talking like, I'm talking 10 million is like a final cost. Okay, like the final cost to build it from scratch. I'm not talking like the land itself is 10 million. I'm just saying that it needs to be a sense of accomplishment. It needs to be more than 5 minutes worth of gameplay in order to completely finish the game. You know what I mean? Like, or that DLC. If everyone can buy the best house in 5 minutes, it's all already set. You know, you don't have to work for it. Then what's the point? People like working for these things and spend a lot of time on it. And if you're just doing whatever, then yeah, I'm not saying it. I'm talking final cost 10 million for the biggest house with, you know, completely built. You know, you get everything. And that's just looking at it. Like I said, I don't know the numbers. I just know based on some of the people I've talked to and the amount of gold that I see on the average player, that the average gold per player is probably close to 1 million. At least. I mean, I know there's some with super low amounts of, they're sitting there going, what? 1 million? I only have 10,000, and that's the most I've ever had because, you know, I use it and I never get more than that. But then there's also the people who probably sitting there with 50 million gold. And I know a couple players who have 50 million gold in their bank. Yeah. So I'm just saying the final product needs to be something you work towards, not something that is automatically given to you right away. Customization. What are we looking at customization wise? Like, are we seeing what do you want to see? Avi, why don't you go ahead? I mean, wildest dreams. Go ahead, go nuts.
Well, I've already said some of the things that I expect us to see, and that's, like I said before, sort of like the Orsinium Museum, where they have places where you can set your trophies and all those little things. But if we're talking instance, I'd like my wild dreams, you know, it's kind of like what we said before. I'd like the idea of walking into a big gate, seeing every mount I've purchased, chilling at the stables. They may just be there for looks. You know, you can't jump on them and ride around and pick each one like a single player game, but, you know, jump into your house, be able to move some things around, have your big flag hanging with your guild logo and guild colors, and being able to upgrade your bed to your, I don't know, to your dressers, to just every little thing. Having the idea you guys talked about, if you have a nice big house, there's a big door in the back, you can open up and create a guild hall or create something for your guild to be able to go in and hang out in at any time. They don't need your permission to be in there. It's just kind of the back door, so to say, your garage. Little things like that. That's exactly what I want to see. You know, if you get say you get, let me find a good example. The Caldwell Silver Achievement, you get to have his hat or whatever. I want a place where I can display that hat, since I'll probably never wear it, you know? Because, I mean, I'm still confused on if that's a costume or an actual item. I mean, I can't imagine it just being a costume, a one-piece costume. But, so, you know, you buy all these things from the Crown Store and you have places to display them. I like little ideas like that, but...
Yeah. No,
that's what
I'd
I'd
like
like
to
to
stark
see.
naked wearing the tin hat on you. That just he created the one-piece costume.
I would do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And no, that's not unreasonable. And I actually think the Hearthfire expansion is not acceptable. Because I know a single-player game, it's not acceptable because everything was just pre-placed.
That's what I expect it to be like. In my honest opinion, that's what I expect it to be like.
If they do that, though, they're...
With upgrades. Something like that, but with upgrades.
It better not be. I expect it to be like EQ2 at the very least. I mean, that game's how old? And they did housing where you could, craft the beds and then put them where the hell you wanted in the room. And
yeah. Every game has done that.
The full customization. If people waited this long for housing, if it comes out that half-assed, they will have a lot of angry people.
Oh, I will be upset.
Don't get me wrong. That's exactly how I want to see it. But personally, I don't know why. I'm just expecting it to see it as a you buy it and it's set on the style that it is and the place that you purchase it at. But
Previous experience suggests.
I think the outside of the house will be maybe pre-done. Like you buy a house, they have a couple small house shapes or whatever, and that's what you get. No, that's fine. But internally, like even Final Fantasy had it to the point where when you were placing something, you went into a building mode. You were able to control the axis. Like if you wanted it turn, you could put something in any corner you wanted. You could turn it to any angle you wanted. Modern MMOs have done this, and the Hearthfire where you buy the bed, whatever, and all of a sudden it's just placed in the room that's designated bedroom is not acceptable in this day and age. It's lazy. Because look how many people didn't even play with Hearthfire. They waited for mods that allowed you to do that kind of stuff because of just that. It's lazy programming in this day and age. People nowadays, in all these MMOs that have houses now, the amount of customization is insane, and like you can place things anywhere you want, that having the whole, oh, I bought a bed, now it went into my bedroom and I can't move it, it is lazy, and it needs to be able to have customization with crafting, like what KDR Mickey said, complete customization, glass style beds. RP community would go crazy. Yeah, if you have a crafter who's able to make glass motif, they should be able to make, add more recipes that they can then make, I don't know, glass bed frame, or however the case may be. That crafting is needed in this game, but then you can then take that glass bed and throw it anywhere in the house that you want. If you want your glass bed right in front of your front door, by all means, you should be able to throw it there. Like,
I mean, that's what I want to see, but then again, I've never played another MMO where they've had housing. The closest game I've played to having housing is Skyrim. So that is kind of what I picture. When I look at ESO, when I play ESO, when I picture walking into an instance house that you purchased, I just kind of picture it kind of being set in stone. I hope it's not. I hope you guys are right. I think that'd be absolutely amazing, and it'd make me a very happy person. But, we'll have to wait and see. But I don't know why my gut feeling's telling me we're going to be a little disappointed at that matter. But I hope not.
And a lot of people, and I feel for you, you've never played an MMO before, but besides this one, but other MMOs, even older MMOs that had housing, was never that simplistic. Where, like Hearthfire, and especially since it was a single-player game, as much as I love Elder Scrolls, don't get me wrong, I love Elder Scrolls, but even people who love Elder Scrolls would say that Hearthfire was a lazy expansion.
And I agree. Hearthfire's worse than most housing mods.
Yeah, exactly.
That come out.
People made housing mods so that you could build the house the way you wanted, because Hearthfire was just lazy. Yes. And and I'm sure they even know this, that it was lazy, because you look at, like I said, if anyone is curious, I'm sure there's videos out there. Go look at Dark Age of Camelot. Even that had hooks and stuff, and that game is almost 20 years old now. Look at WildStar housing. Look at Final Fantasy XIV housing, and just get an idea for what's out there for MMOs. If you've never played an MMO, this is your first MMO, and you don't really know what to expect. Even older games that had EverQuest 2, for instance, even look at that.
Yeah. I would say that's the bare minimum. If you can't even reach EQ2 standards, shame on you, because that's an old game now, and it was one of the first MMOs to come out with housing, and they did a fine job with it.
And thanks, Justin. Justin's like, if Zoss listened to this podcast, they would know exactly what to do based on all of our input. Yeah, there are certain things that need done in order to have a housing that's not lazy. Because if they do release lazy content, you don't want to do, especially for something that's so loved as housing. And maybe you could get away with that with people like Avi, who never, and I don't mean this in a negative way, Avi, so don't get mad at me, but you've only played the Elder Scrolls single player titles, and sadly, like I said, they were lazy with Hearthfire. you don't know. My goodness, Rift is free to play. Look at their dimensions, what you can do in the dimensions. Like, the housing in games that are way older than this, that are way older than Skyrim, had better housing than what Skyrim had.
I'm watching a couple of videos on WildStar housing right now, just to
WildStar housing is just insane.
get an idea, and yeah, this is pretty intense.
Yeah, you buy a plot and you could build anything. Now, like, the thing I don't like about WildStar is you really could build anything. I think they should, for lore,
this is insane. They got
for lore, they need to
trees in
be
their
able,
houses.
yeah, they need to be able to lock down the lore a little bit to make sure you're not building a rocket ship or something. But it is, as far as interior, you can. The interior decoration, even of Final Fantasy 14, is really good.
I want a bar in my house.
See, yeah, like
there it was right there.
Yeah, you can build all these different things. So they really need to look at modern MMOs, not even modern, even older MMOs, and don't go the Hearthfire. You need to have at least some customization. If they don't do the outside for lore reasons, which I could at least understand for lore reasons, they need to make it so the inside is completely customizable however you want, at the very least. So, alrighty. Anything else before we move on to our Tales section?
Nope.
All right, let's go ahead and move right into Tales. Avi, I'm going to let you go first, and then I'm going to go because I only have a little bit.
Okay. Scroll to that part. There it is right there. Okay, so I haven't done too much in-game either, so I haven't done much. We had an in-game event that Aggelos was supposed to host, and he didn't. So Krabby came to the rescue and got it set up for us, and it was a good time. We went and we ran Rothgar World bosses. I'm sorry if I missed anybody. I believe it was me, Art, Krabby, Ridge, Scotticus, and his wife. I may be wrong. I believe that's who it was. There may have been a couple more people. Sorry if I missed you guys. It was a really good time, though. Everybody was in TeamSpeak. We were all chatting it up, having a really good time. Sadly, I missed Trial Night. I heard they actually got a trial together, and they made it. I believe they said they made it to the last boss, and they wiped completely, and they got. I don't know. I can't remember how trials are. You have a certain amount of tries, right?
Yeah.
If you die too many times, then you pretty much fail. A mission fails.
Yeah, you have about 100 lives or whatever across your entire raid, and if you use them all, you have to start over.
Right. I believe that happened to them. So, but I was sad I missed it.
PSA for Clan of Orphan. Anyone needing money for housing, I'm trying to buy the Akaviri style motif, all the chapters, so hit him up. So there you go. If you need some money, he's trying to buy all the motifs. So at Clan of Orphans. So if you need to make some money, there you go. Go out, farm some AP, buy some chapters, go from there. I was not there, my gameplay is really sad because I hate my job, and most people know this. My job recently has become insanely unbearable, to the point where I'm so stressed out. I'm like, I feel sick. Like, even my wife's like, you need to go to the doctor. So I'm actively looking for a new job right now. Hopefully I find one soon. But I was unable to go to any of these events because of work. And so I was not there at Endgame night. And also that night we had a DCN podcast, so I was not able to go to Endgame night on Friday. Or pretty much do much of anything on Friday. But on Saturday night, I got to play with Thais for a couple hours. And I do mean a couple hours. It wasn't just a little bit. It was actually a couple hours, which was really nice. Let me pull up my notes here. We finished all of Canarthy's Roost, finally, and now we're on to Auradon.
You finished all of it. Okay, so what did you think of the Green Lady story?
I actually liked it.
Really good, right?
Yeah, we went dark anti-hero for that because we left UNL, whatever his name is. We left him to her hands.
Oh, I did too, every single time for all of my characters.
Okay, yeah, we went the dark route. We also we kind of went light with the one section, though, with the skooma dealers in the fields. We didn't turn them in. We gave the stuff over to the brother who burnt down the house so he could destroy the skooma.
That would have been an awful thing if you turned them in. You don't want to help the Thalmor.
Oh, I know. I said
you guys made the right choice.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I wasn't gonna help the Thalmor anyway. I'm like, absolutely not. Screw the Thalmor. I like the Khajiit, so I wanted to help them. Thais was not so fond of the Khajiit, and she did not want to help them. But we ended up, she, acquiesced to my request and let us save them. We also did one more quest with skooma dealers, which one of the things I love about this game is if you pay attention to the storyline, Hazek's Stand is a section in there. You find that one of the Khajiit is trying to sneak into this known skooma peddler area and and stop this guy. And you find out like where his father was, and the mother says that my son was taken captive, et cetera, et cetera. And when you ask about the father, she's like, well, he hurt himself a long time ago, and he became addicted to skooma to the point where he was a shadow of his former self. Well, you help the guy in there kill Hazek, the skooma peddler, only to find out at the end that was actually his father and the woman, the female Khajiit's husband. And you find out in the story that he became addicted to skooma and then turned his addiction into a skooma. He started selling it at that point. He first became addicted to it and then started selling it. Hence why, so they ended up killing their own, patriarch at that point. And that was like, whoa.
Did you tell the mom that the son didn't help out at all, or did you?
No, I said he helped
like
out.
A warrior? Okay,
I said he helped out because he was there. I mean, he did follow me around.
He didn't do anything, but
well,
he was there. No, I did the same.
In any regards, I was VR16. I killed the guy in 2 hits. So
Yeah.
Even if he wanted to help, he probably couldn't have. But it was just an interesting story. And as I always say to my wife, I keep telling her, I'm like, if you're playing Elder Scrolls and hoping for a happy ending, you're playing the wrong game, because there is no such thing as a happy ending in Elder Scrolls. There's sad and sadder. No matter what option you pick, even if you think it's the right option, it often ends up, being terrible. It's like, oh, you find an orphan out in the middle of nowhere, and you're like, oh, I need to I need to help them however I can help, and you're like, oh, I'll give them. It's like you can let orphan die, or you can feed the orphan. So you're like, oh, I'm going to feed the orphan. Then you turn out the orphan is like carrying a mass disease like the Thracian plague and ends up wiping out half of Tamriel. And you're like, oh, what did I just do? And that seems to be always how this game is. No matter what you do, it always ends up that it's going to be a sad ending one way or the other. You're going to find out that whatever you did had a negative counter effect somewhere.
You're just getting started in the AD, man. It gets pretty deep. The AD story is really good.
Really?
For being Dominion, yeah. I mean, it's one of my favorites. I won't lie. I mean, I think Canarthi's Roost in general is one of the most memorable zones for me. I remember everything that happens there, and unlike some of the other zones, people can tell me of a quest that I've done 5 times, and I go, I don't remember that. So, yeah, I thought it was really good. The story with the green lady and the Sylvanar, it's very good.
Nice. I have to open up this one other thing here. Show desktop. Yeah, I was very much. I liked it. It was very decent, and for a storyline anyway. Why can I not do this? Well, that's crud. I'm trying to open... there we go. I'll just do it this way. I'm just trying to get the one thing that I need. There we go. I'll move that over here, so I don't forget to do my mailbag at the end of the night. So yeah, no, that was pretty much my gameplay. I really didn't have a lot, but I got to spend a couple hours, like from 9 o'clock to about midnight, so about 3 hours. And I was in TeamSpeak with KDR Mickey, so shout out to KDR Mickey. Ridge was in there, Kilted Piper showed up, and Krabby was in there for a little bit. It was just a lot of fun and I really appreciate everyone who was hanging out and just chatting with us and while we were doing the quest, because like I said, my work week has been so stressful lately. I've got so little game time in just because by the time I get home, even if I'm not doing something work related, I'm just so tired and exhausted. I just want to sleep. Just, to escape the day. So I haven't been able to get a lot of game time in, and it was just very relaxing to be able to spend a day playing ESO and not having to worry about the day. Like, tonight I'm going to be starting to think about work tomorrow and dreading it. But last night I knew I had Tails the next day, and it was just a day of being able to play ESO, talking with some awesome community members, and just having a really good time. So I really do appreciate it, the people who showed up. You may not think about it, but I do. It does mean a lot to me because you guys pretty much made my weekend a lot better than what it was. So I do appreciate that. Yeah. So that was it for gameplay. Anything else from you, Avi, before we move on?
Yeah, it's my 1 year on this podcast.
That's right, it is.
Cheers, Tales of Tamriel.
Cheers.
Hey.
There we go. 1 year, man. 1 year.
Yeah.
Wow. I
was gonna bring that up. I was gonna bring that up earlier. Hence, I said I got like 4 beers with me. That was me leading into it's my 1 year. It's everyone's like, God, are you gonna get drunk? I'm like, oh. I had a reason.
You had a reason. That is awesome. I actually remembered you send me a message about that. I'm like, I got to remember to message. I'm so glad you actually brought that up again because obviously I apparently forgot. Congrats, 1 year, man. That is so great. Bringing you in was just fantastic. You've been a fantastic part of this entire show. I mean, it was really pretty much what kept the show going was you and Asteldian stepping up after Thais had to step away due to our son, so it's not really her fault, and Deltia having to step away. It was pretty much just me, and I was thinking, how am I going to continue doing this? And you two both stepped up with me and kept the show going at that point. So thank you to both you, Asteldian, and Avi for stepping up and being part of Tales of Tamriel this past year and keeping everything going. So that's my sappiness.
Thanks for having me, man.
It's been our pleasure.
Good time. Yeah, it's been a good time.
I've like I said earlier, I've met some of. We had an interview last night with an indie game developer, and we were chatting afterwards about a lot of things, and one of the things we chatted about was how community in all these games is so hard to do nowadays because modern games don't really make for community, and even Elder Scrolls doesn't really make for community if you think about it. It really doesn't. It does not lend itself well with its very solo nature. But I've honestly made some of the best friends I've had in Elder Scrolls because of our community, because of us as a group of people in Dungeon Crawler Network, as well as our friends who are watching the show now, and the fans of the show, the Quest Gaming Network guys who've been fantastic, stepped up, and made for a great community together, a great podcasting community. I mean, even Mike is in chat right now, just chatting with us, and I speak with Varwin and Rage, and all these people who, instead of creating a combative, negative community of competition, we've formed a community of helping each other out, being a group of friends who like to hang out. And I mean, even with you guys, it have been some of my friends who may not have been around the longest, because some of my earlier MMOs, but you guys are definitely some of the best friends I've made in MMOs, period. So thank you so much for all of that. And I'm really going to stop before I start tearing up, because that would just be terrible. Yeah. All right. Are you guys going to say anything, or are you just going to sit here and let me stare at the camera?
We're going to leave you there dangling, mate.
Thanks. Thanks a lot, friends. I take all of that back.
Despite the fact that I'll be retiring soon, obviously I'll still be part of the network, so I look forward to doing other things with it in the future.
Right. Yeah, and like we said, Asteldian's not leaving the network. He's just done with ESO because, as we said earlier, ESO is not a very social game unless you go out of your way to be social, and that just doesn't fit the play style of some people. And so he's moving on within our network, and we'll be doing a bunch of other stuff. So stick tight and check out the Dungeon Crawler Network podcast, because for a while that's where you'll be seeing him. So after episode 100. Okay, we have some messages from people today for our mailbag, so I'm going to get right into that. First one, I actually got this in-game, so I'm actually reading this from someone who sent me something in-game, so that's really cool. This is from, in-game name is Sin the Conductor, S-Y-N the Conductor, sent me a message going, "Hello, Aggelos. Just wanted to say that I love the show. You guys offer interesting opinions that get me to think about what's happening in-game, and it's a lot of fun listening. I agree when you guys stress the community aspect of ESO and how we need to rely on others," which I think I just went on to a long speech about, didn't I? Hope all is well with Avi, Asteldian, you and your family. P.S. I made a pact alt for King Covenant, but blood for the pact too. Sin. Thank you, Sin, for that message. Made my day. And I wanted to read it off here in the chat. So thank you so much. And I'm glad that you enjoy the show. I really do. It means a lot to me. Even a lot of the people who've joined us over the past few weeks and stuff, saying how much they've enjoyed the show. It does mean a lot to know that what we're doing does not go unnoticed. I mean, we do it because of the fun of getting to do this, but it does mean a lot, and can get disheartening at times if you feel like no one's ever talking to you or enjoying your content. So if you're a podcast listener, it doesn't even have to be about our show, but if you really enjoy podcasts, send them some love sometimes, because it really does make our day to know that people listen and enjoy the show. I do have more messages here. This message from Gentleman Sour. "Hello, DCN's Tales of Tamriel cast. My name is Gentleman Sour, and there are a couple things I wanted to bring up. First off, I am currently on episode 75 and playing catch-up before you upload episode 100. Well, hopefully you get to this before too long. I started from episode 1 and I've loved every single episode so far. Second, I wanted to note that I am already seriously doing research on a gaming PC that I can enjoy the performance that a PC can put out compared to what the Xbox One is stuck at. I highly enjoy PvE content and also a lore junkie when it comes to ESO, which leads me to my last note. I'm currently running an RP character that I plan on writing a journal, so to say, on my character's journey throughout Tamriel. I was planning on releasing these journal entries in volumes and wanted to know if you guys would like to read them, and or if one of the writers of DCN would look over it and give me some feedback. I do plan on making this as lore-friendly as possible. Thanks again for getting me through my 13-hour shifts at work, and thank you for reading this email, Gentleman Sour. I would absolutely adore reading them. Like, I absolutely would. You can send me messages any day you want, and I will read them thoroughly, and I will enjoy them. I can give you tips on lore if at any point, since you want to make it lore friendly. I do love the lore of this game. So, if that's something that you need help with, I'd be more than happy to look at it and help. because that's something I enjoy doing. Otherwise, I would just love to read them, period. I'm sure other people here in our cast would also feel that way.
Definitely. Hey, if you're on episode 75, get ready for episode 76 because it's titled "Aggelos Drinks Mead Before Show."
Oh, yes.
Should be a good one.
That was a good one. I need you guys to wait for me for a few seconds while I pull up this thing.
Yeah, he's almost a crying over spilled mead too.
Oh yeah, that's a good episode.
Might want to skip that one. What's after that one?
Maybe you might just know that if you made it past that,
It gets better again.
It gets better again. I think it was a fair analysis, even though that was one that we had some negative feedback on. But I feel like it was a fair analysis.
We got a little negative in that episode, but
overall. We did.
If ever there's a time for Thay to pack your ovaries.
Yeah, right. Pack your ovaries, guys. Let's look at this one. I'm trying to find it because I wanted to highlight this.
Let me also just say while you're finding that, if you're just getting into Tales of Tamriel, also be sure to go over to Elder Scrolls Off the Record. We did a crossover episode with them a while back. It was just an honest look at ESO. It was a really good time where we speak pretty true about the Elder Scrolls Online at the current state it was during that time. So go check that episode out too. Elder Scrolls Off the Record, another very great podcast.
All right, I found it now. Thank you. I actually sent a message saying I was going to talk to this guy, but this is perfect because this was a build that Asteldian had done. This was on his DPS tank hybrid Hand of Justice. This is from Deck Swag, saying, when I first read this, I was pretty excited. I was a huge Skyrim fan, and I pre-ordered ESO. I played non-stop for a few months until I reached Veteran 1 in Cold Harbor, but ever since that happened, it's all been downhill for me. I literally went from playing every day to giving up and not touching the game for close to 5 months. When I was playing ESO steadily, I found it very easy. I used a great sword at first, maxed it out, and switched to sword and board on bar 2, or for bar 1. On bar 2, I used the bow. I always tried to keep my attributes fairly even. I also maxed out my werewolf during this time. Everything was great back then. Stress-free, wandering and slaying as an Imperial Templar in heavy armor. I always tried to keep my build set so I would be most efficient in Cyrodiil. I used a lot of throwing javelins and distance-closing attacks like shield charge. I would never tried to solo a group dungeon with this character, but I never had a problem in the wild open world caves. Until now. My character is beyond useless. I can't even complete Cold Harbor. I find myself waiting for lower level players to show up so I have a chance on making it through. Today I spent an entire day trying to reset and adjust my character so that I can at least finish Cold Harbor, but it's hopeless. I've spent about $70 in skill and attribute respec scrolls trying to find something that will work, but all attempts lead to pathetic and disastrous failure. When I read the Hand of Justice Templar build, I thought this was hope, but the results were the same. Total failure. I'm just as weak as I was 5 months ago. I don't care if my Templar isn't the best, I just want him to be mediocre at least. I just want to be able to play the story mode. This is so depressing because I love the story and exploring and everything else about the game, but right now all I want to do is throw my PS4 in the furnace and watch it burn. Can anyone tell me why I suck so much? It's hard without knowing what your build is exactly, but judging from what you were saying, you're kind of looking at more of a PvP style build, so you can do some Cyrodiil as well. I guess at this point, if you're trying to do some Cyrodiil, I'm going to say PvE is a different beast than Cyrodiil by a good margin. Like, how you play is a little different because when you're playing against players, you're focusing a lot on CC versus the raw damage and sustain that's needed for PvE content. If you're running sword and board, that's great. And bow, that's just as fine. It's not really a big deal one way or the other. I would really love for you to message us again. Like, I know you wrote on here, and I'm going to try to talk to you as well. But some tips, guys, for survivability. Do you have any to help this guy out if he's trying to run Imperial Templar, probably more of a tanky type build? What do you guys have anything to try to help him out?
Yeah. it sounds to me not a build issue. It sounds like a classic I've come across quite a lot of times when people hit the veteran levels, and that is two simple words: block, interrupt. Because before we get to veteran ranks, a lot of people don't even notice the tells that monsters do. I did some of the trials, and when I said to people, you need to interrupt the mob, they had no idea how to even do that at VR 14. So that tends to be the thing that people seem to forget. If you see red sparkles coming from the mob, you need to interrupt that ASAP. And if you see the white sparkles, you need to block. Those are the two key things. And until you get to vet levels, you never really have to worry about it throughout the whole game. But the minute you get to the VR part, that all changes. I mean, other than that, because there's no real difficulty changes beyond the fact they hit harder, and those mistakes will kill you.
Right. Right. Yeah. Avi?
He said he's having a hard time just getting through the story, correct?
Yeah. So he's still in
PvE.
he's still in regular he's not even in the gold and silver zones. He's in Cold Harbor.
I don't know, man. If you're an Imperial Templar, I say you do what I did. Drop the sword and board, pick up a nice big old two-hander. You will smash your way through the story. You know, just have fun with it. You know, don't focus too much on tanking or taking a role when you're playing by yourself. You know, just focus on DPS and getting through the story when it comes to fighting mobs and fighting bad guys or whatever, and you shouldn't have too much of an issue.
And without, like I said, we're trying to help you out as best as we can with the message you got. And some people in chat are saying it might be a good idea to mention that you can respec for gold. If you didn't know that, I don't know if you know that or not. Just keep that in mind that you can respec for gold, and it's like 50 gold per skill point. So you don't really have to spend the money unless you don't have any gold. I don't know what your situation is, but you know, just keep
unless you have a lot of money, yeah, then power to you.
Yeah. Yeah, but just keep that in mind. I mean, you don't have to spend all that money for something like that. I mean, there's better things to spend your money if you really want to spend money. But I really do agree with what Asteldian said. Learning to block and interrupt is something that and I'm trying to say this in a way that, like, I don't want to offend the player because I don't know, just based on what it is. I don't know what your skill level is in the game, so maybe this is not news to you. You know what I mean? It might not be, but we're saying this because we don't know. That yeah, if you're not blocking and interrupting and moving out of red circles and stuff, which I'm sure you might probably that, but like you said, when you see the little red lines going over like they're casting something, if you're close enough to interrupt or bash, do it. If you see a big the white or yellow flashies when they're doing a power attack, by all means, you got to block that or you're going to die. So, you know, you got to block that. Sustainability is another thing. You may want to swap, like, having multiple sets available. Like, the bow, for instance, is great. But maybe you want to put a two-hander on your bar. If you want to have that tanky build, that's fine. But there's some heals you can put on your bar for if you're going tanky. I don't think you should need to put anything in or Magicka. I really think that would actually be more of a negative to you at this point. Focus on health and stamina, with more in stamina, I think, than health. Yep. You know, I would say probably do a 2 to 3 ratio. For every 2 health, have 3 in there. So for every 5, you're putting 3 in stamina, 2 in health, at least at the start, to help you out. And focus on those. Forget Magicka. Take the stamina morphs, because you're using stamina weapons anyway. And if you are an Imperial Templar, put Breath of Life on your bar. I mean, you might only get 2 or 3 cast out of it, but it will help. It'll help you out. And I recommend don't use the Breath of Life. I mean, use the secondary one, whatever the other one was called. Help me out, guys.
Honor the Dead?
Honor the Dead, yeah. Because if you're playing solo and you're going to have so little Magicka, you'll actually get the benefits of that, because after 2 cast or whatever, you're going to be in that lower than certain amount of Magicka anyway. So you might as well use it in that regard. If you're willing to go two-hander, Rally is a wonderful tool because of the hot. It gives you major brutality for the damage, as well as being able to give you a hot going the entire time. And when it ends, it also gives you, why am I drawing a blank? Help me out. A big heal at the end. And you can actually end it early by casting it again, and it will heal you for a fairly large portion. So Rally is really helpful for stamina. If you're doing PvP excessively, and you want to keep your build the way it is, try putting Restoring Vigor, that Vigor morph on your bar for the heal, because it's a stamina-based heal.
To be honest, if you're built for PvP, then you should be able to do the solo stuff, no problem, because your build will be quite survivability-based from PvP, and that means on the solo, actually I found my PvP build used to be perfect for soloing. And that's why I was thinking that blocking and interrupting is the problem, because build-wise it shouldn't be an issue, because you can usually outlast the mobs. They're pretty weak, but if you don't react to those very important, because those are skills designed to kill you. That's what the red sparkles and the white are. So if you don't react to them, it doesn't matter how good your build is, you will die.
Right. Absolutely. And you got to remember, PvP and PvE are slightly different. I know the standard in people are probably blocking in PvP a lot, but they don't have those. They don't have, what are they? The tells, the telegraphs. You just block when you see someone coming at you. Whereas PvE is designed to have telegraphs to let you know, like I said, that red circle or whatever that happens, or that, you know, the red lights that form around a guy tells you that that's a spell that can be interrupted. To interrupt it, bash it. I don't know how to do it on a PS4 controller. I tell you, I think it's the shoulder buttons, but I don't know. Obviously, you know PS4, so I shouldn't have to tell you that part. But learn to block, or learn to bash when you see the yellow glowing lights. Learn to block, and then counter with a heavy attack to set them off balance. All of that will help you out a lot. So, we really do want to help more, but other than those tips right there, like I said, focusing on only health and stamina. If you have vigor, put that on your bar to help with some heals. PvP is mostly survivable, so you should have the survivability for story mode with a PvP build. So just focus on blocking and interrupting, and that might help. If you have any other messages or any other questions, please send us a message back and go to our website, dungeoncrawlernetwork.com, go to the Contact Us, give us a little bit more information, and we can assist you further. We tried to help the best we could with what information you gave us. Okay, guys, that's about it. It's the end of the show. So let's go ahead and do our sign-offs, tell people where they can find us, etc., etc. Asteldian, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Yeah, been a pleasure as always. You can find me at Asteldian on Twitter, and you can contact me via the Dungeon Crawler Network email as well if you had any questions for stuff.
Okay. That's it. Avi.
Yeah, it's been a really good, fun episode. I'm really excited about housing and how it gets put out. It's nice to be here for a whole year, so happy 1 year to me and Asteldian 2 weeks ago. So, yeah, you can find me everywhere, PS4, Steam, in-game, on the PC, on Twitter, at Avi Optimal, AVIOPTIMAL.
There you go. You can follow me in-game at Aggelos, AGGELOS. That is my in-game name on the North American Mega server for PC. So send me a friend request, a message, anything like that. If you're interested in doing any guild events, please note that Wings of Fate, our DCN guild, is doing events every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday now, and we want more people. So if you're interested in doing guild events, whether it be pledge nights, open world events with me, or end game content like trials, come on out. Just you don't even have to feel bad about if you've never done it before. We'll teach you. It's not a big deal. So send us some invites, come on out, and have a good time. I know we've had a lot of people who've been coming out a lot recently, and we're trying to really build that community aspect in the game so people want to play together. That's what these MMOs are about anyway, and as I'm even sure Avi can tell you, some of the best parts of ESO was actually getting to play with friends. I mean, that's Definitely. Why we're here.
It changes the whole game, getting to know some good people, so highly recommend it. And we're very casual, so I've only done one trial in my life, and I try to go to all the trials I can, and We're all learning together, so don't be shy.
Absolutely. You can follow the show on Twitter at Tales of Tamriel. You can follow the network so you can see everything that we do here at the Dungeon Crawler Network at Dungeon Crawl Net. Of course, we got our website, dungeoncrawlernetwork.com, where we have all of our podcasts. We have ESO guides, a lot of those out there, so check those out, as well as our YouTube at youtube.com/Dungeon Crawler Network. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Tales of Tamriel. Come back next week as we're getting closer to episode 100, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful night. See you later.
Good night, all.
The serpent lights the ancient sky of dread of tainted stars. Evil stirs, and in its wake the souls of mortals sway, and sorrow reigns over fields of red, and spirits pace through the shadows cast by their grace. These are days and nights of venom and blood. Heroes will rise as the anchors fall. Brave the strong, reclaim every soul that belongs to the beauty of dawn. Darkness strikes to blind the strong, but faith will guide our swords. Loyal hearts will stand as one and fight with shields of hope. Pride feels the deadly fire that devours our tower of gold. The drums of war will rage and roar till the sun burns bright once more. These are days and nights of venom and blood. Heroes will rise as the anchors fall. Brave the strong, reclaim every soul that belongs to the beauty of dawn.